The following is a presentation of HBO Sports.
Boxing After Dark is back, kicking off 2004 from the Dodge Theater in Phoenix, Arizona. Tonight, hard-punching bantamweight titleist Rafael Marquez takes on Pete Frissina, who's waited through 6 unbeaten years for an opportunity like this. Then in the main event, Antonio Margarito takes his straight-ahead, crowd-pleasing style into the ring against an undefeated challenger from Canada, Hercules Kivelos. Big-time boxing comes back to Phoenix, where many big-time boxers have trained in recent years, and the crowd gathers in anticipation of 2 of the sport's rising young stars putting their hard-punching skills on display. Nearly a year ago, Rafael Marquez won a 118-pound title with a devastating knockout of longtime champion Tim Austin. Tonight, Marquez defends that belt for the second time against Floridian Pete Frissina. Then Antonio Margarito, a boxer brawler from Mexico, looks to make a big-time statement for future big-money fights in the talent-rich welterweight class. Margarito will take on Hercules Kivelos of Montreal. Hello again, everybody. I'm Jim Lampley. Action has always been the watchword on Boxing After Dark, and action is the watchword we expect tonight as we have 2 fights between fighters whose styles would seem to conspire to produce face-to-face confrontations, taking place in an unusually small 16-foot by 16-foot ring. It's a good equation. Stay with us. Working with me, as always, HBO boxing analyst Larry Merchant. Larry, for the second consecutive week, we have heavily favored name fighters against relatively unknown opponents. Will the relative unknowns give the favorites terrific competition for the second week in a row?
I called the FBI.
I wonder why.
Which now famously has conducted that sting operation against Top Rank, tonight's promoter. And they didn't have a clue. Perhaps we need to remind ourselves that there is often a tendency to god up these fighters we know so well, to make more of them than is actually there on occasions, to expect too much every time out, and not expect enough from some fighters who may be a grade lower but have come to fight the fight of their lives. A month ago, I hadn't even heard of Frissina and Kivelos. For all we know, Jim, they're FBI agents still conducting a sting.
Well, after all, both are promoted by Don King, so in fact they could be here on behalf of the FBI, but probably not. I'm sure that our expert commentator Emmanuel Stewart expects them to fight. And Emmanuel, about a year ago at this time, a fighter named Nate Campbell came out of a grocery store stockroom in Jacksonville, Florida, and gave a seasoned professional named Joel Casamayor the fight of his life in Temecula, California. Now here comes Pete Frissina from the sleepy west side of Florida, where he admits that he's been working full-time in his father's fencing business for several years while going unbeaten in the ring. Can Frissina surprise his opponent, who is Rafael Marquez, in the same way that last year Campbell surprised Casamayor?
It's possible, but it's going to be very difficult. First of all, one of the things that Frissina seems to be the proudest of is his ability to take a punch. And he said it's no big thing getting hit on the chin. In fact, I'll prove that I can take a good punch. And that's a bad attitude when you're going in with a guy like Marquez, who's one of the biggest punchers I've ever saw in the bantamweight division. But nevertheless, I like the spirit that he has. And, you know, often fights are won by a guy who have a lot of fight inside of him, and that overcomes the talent in many cases. And that may be the case tonight, but it's going to be a very difficult task tonight.
After all, Marquez has pulled a few upsets himself in his past career. Let's take a look at the tail of the tape for this bantamweight title fight Marquez, the recognized legitimate champion of the 118-pound division, 28 years old, same age as his opponent Frissina. Pete Frissina will have a 1-inch height advantage and a 3.5-inch arm length advantage. Measured from the armpit to the end of the fist, it might mean more if Frissina throws straight punches, but he tends to wing them from the outside. Yesterday, Marquez weighed in 1/4 pound under the bantamweight limit, and tonight has gone up unofficially to 130 pounds. But look at Frissina, weighed in right on the money at 118 and has put on 17 pounds unofficially since that time, going into the ring at the lightweight limit of 135 pounds. Rules of the bout with our unofficial ringside scorer, Harold Letterman.
The Rafael Marquez-Pete Frissina fight is scheduled for 12 rounds using the unified rules that you see on your screen. Jim, real quick, the 4 criteria that the judges will use to score each individual round: clean punching, effective aggressiveness, ring generalship, and defense, with a strong emphasis on clean, effective punching. Jim.
All right, Harold, it's a mark of how forbidding boxing's economic pyramid can be, that during 6 years without losing a fight, waiting for a title shot, Pete Frissina has had to work full-time in his father's fencing business in order to have the steady income he needs. He's looking to knock off Rafael Marquez and get to paychecks bigger than any he's ever seen or dreamed of in boxing.
He was a very good amateur, a national champion at one time. He can fight, but he's never fought anyone on this, the highest level of the game.
Although we think Marquez is a puncher, and Frissina said, I don't think he hits all that hard. Maybe he'll find out different. Here's a closer look with Larry Merchant.
This is the television debut of Pete Frissina, not the HBO debut. He's never been on television before. He has a kind of a Huck Finn existence, he tells us, back home in Florida. He's a triathlete, a fisherman. He raises pit bulls. He races cars. An all-around kid. Loves to fight. Comes from a family of high achievers. His older brother is a doctor.
And there's a story behind that, which we may get to as the evening goes on. Meanwhile, he now waits for Rafael Marquez. And a year ago, Marquez was a heavy underdog against Tim Austin in Las Vegas. And Austin was leading on the scorecards when Marquez caught him in the 8th round and dropped him with a big right hand, ultimately leading to a technical knockout win. So this man is totally aware that the underdog can rise up and surprise in a championship fight.
Not only that, Jim, but he seems prepared. He told us he's been training at high altitude, over 10,000 feet, since mid-November.
Amazing. Here's a closer look at Rafael Marquez.
He got to this point by beating 2 of the top fighters in the sport, Stu Sharp Johnson and Tim Austin. His brother, Juan Manuel, the featherweight who owns 2 belts, is now in negotiations perhaps to fight Manny Pacquiao in what would be a tremendous fight at featherweight. And both of their trainers, Nacho Berenstein, says he has a dilemma. He thinks that this fighter should look more like his older brother, should be more technical, and shouldn't expose himself to being hit so much, but he's afraid to change him because he's been criticized in the past for doing that with other outstanding fighters.
All right, let's go to ring announcer Michael Buffer now for the official introductions.
Ladies and gentlemen, good evening and welcome to the Dodge Theater here in Phoenix, Arizona, where tonight Bob Arum's Top Rank Incorporated is proud to present an evening of World Championship Boxing, brought to you in association with your undisputed king of beers, Budweiser. All bouts sanctioned by the Arizona State Boxing Commission. The 3 judges scoring this first bout on the 10-point system are Joe Garcia, Howard Ritchie, and Chris Wilson. And when the bell rings, your referee in charge of the action, Raul Caiz Jr. And now, ladies and gentlemen, 12 rounds of boxing for the IBF Bantamweight Championship of the World. Introducing first, fighting out of the blue corner, wearing red with green, and officially weighing 118 pounds. His professional record, 31 bouts with 27 victories, including 15 knockouts, only 3 defeats, and 1 draw. from Tarpon Springs, Florida, here is the IBF #1 ranked bantamweight contender in the world, Pete Sweet Pea Frissina. And his opponent across the ring, fighting out of the red corner, wearing white with gold. His official weight, 117 3/4 pounds. And his professional record, 33 bouts, with 30 victories, including 27 knockouts, with only 3 defeats. De Ciudad de Mexico, the reigning, defending IBF Bantamweight Champion of the world, Rafael Marquez.
2-second only. Boxer, 2-second only. Mouthpiece. Protector, mouthpiece, por favor. Can you put in his mouthpiece? Okay, perfect. Aquí están los golpes legales. Legal punches are here on up, gentlemen, okay? Touch gloves and good luck.
Pete Frissina calls himself Sweet Pete. Says that sometimes he's been known as Dirty Pete. We want to know if he can take a punch.
Emmanuel, I don't know how many bantamweights have ever entered the ring at an unofficial 135 pounds, but Frissina certainly looks strong in the upper body.
Yeah, he's a big-looking guy, but, you know, he throws his punches still with an arch or loop, so a lot of times I think he's still going to have a problem of getting inside of a guy like Marquez, who punches much more accurate.
Marquez has demonstrated power, might prompt some opponents to want to box and move, but Frissina says, I'm coming up into his face. I'm not scared of his power at all. I think I'm the one who'll be strong.
And he's doing just that.
Don't push his head down. No le pus la cabeza.
But already you can see Frissina's tendency to wing shots from the outside.
Yeah, he's winging shots outside, but you know, that's maybe be the only thing he can do. I don't think he can outbox Marquez. Marquez can box and can punch, so he has different options, but in Frissina's case, he's got to go in and try to make it a brawl.
Marquez leading with the jab up the middle. Marquez lands a left hook there. Frissina wants to get inside of Marquez's arm length, get to his body, try to punish the quicker fighter.
Don't push his head down. Stop, no punching, no punching. Break, step back clean. Así limpio, clean. Subiendo.
Larry's been telling us for years how sometimes the title makes the fighter. And trainer Nacho Beristain said that Rafael Marquez has been much better in the gym since winning the bantamweight championship from Tim Austin.
Yeah, most fighters do improve about probably 30–40% once they win a championship. I think the self-esteem and the pride actually comes into being a big factor. In this fight,
the greater sense of responsibility too.
Yes, they do. But in this fight here, I think that Pete is fighting the perfect fight that he can fight, but I don't know if he's going to be able to maintain this type of a tempo and enthusiasm that he's showing for about 3 or 4 rounds.
And Marquez keeps trying to turn Frissina, moving in circles, hits him with a big right hand lead across the top. Solid punch.
Yeah, well, Frissina's never been in this league right now, and everything in life is classes and leagues, and right now he's making a big step up.
And Frissina, who surely didn't think he'd be doing much backing up in the fight, has already backed up into a corner once. Rocked by Marquez's punching power, and down he goes. Solid right hand by Rafael Marquez. The last in a combination of punches that sent Pete Frissina to the canvas.
He may have a good chin, but he's never been hit by a puncher that punches like Marquez.
And it's okay to take a punch, but not to take so many of them. He's been hit too many clean punches.
Body and head.
Second knockdown. 13 seconds remaining in the round. Marquez a little slow going to a neutral corner. Frissina stunned to find himself in these circumstances.
Well, whether he makes it out of this round or not, the fight for the most part is over with.
Just tie him up. There you go, relax. Come on, sit down.
That's Aaron Snowell in Frissina's corner. He was Tim Austin's trainer a year ago when Austin got knocked out by Marquez.
Yes, and he should have a lot of respect for the punching power Marquez too by now.
You got to put you.
Doctor, excuse me.
Strong.
Doctor.
Remember?
I'm fine.
Take a look at him here.
How you doing? I'm fine. I'm perfectly fine.
You know where you are?
Yeah.
Where are you?
We're just getting ready to get into a real fight here.
Yeah, what city is this?
It's Phoenix, man.
What month is it?
What month is it?
month?
It's going to be February tomorrow, 1st.
Okay.
It's January 31st.
Okay, fine.
Now, time in. He's loading up.
Hi.
Just be simple.
Hi.
Move around. Tie him up.
Right?
It's just too accurate a puncher.
Yeah, there's 3 straight hard punches, a 4th. Good fighters don't get hit with 4 clean, hard
maybe
punches
one.
like that in
You're
a
right,
row.
Larry.
Thank you very much. Seconds out, mouthpieces in. Let's go.
Well, and again, you know, Marquez is so accurate coming up the middle. Frissina lets his arms wander wide and leaves the opening there. And you saw that happening toward the end of the round, and it helped to set up the big right hand. Now there's another fusillade of punches from Marquez as he starts behind the jab and tries to land right hands behind it. And Frissina doesn't have a plan B. So as you said, Emmanuel, the fight is over.
Fight is over, ref. Too much of everything.
This is a claimer against a stakes horse.
May be able to take punches in the gym, but taking punches from quality fighters on this level of competition, he can't do it.
And you heard the doctor asking Frissina between rounds 1 and 2 what the date is. It's already February for Pete now.
Here's what state you're in.
He got knocked right out of January by Rafael Marquez. Devastating performance for the smaller of the 2 Marquez brothers. His older brother Juan Manuel Marquez is as sturdy and resolute a featherweight as you would expect to see, and Rafael is the same thing in the bantamweight division. Just strong, Emmanuel.
Very strong, very effective fighter. Just too accurate with his punching power.
And as I mentioned, Frissina had no plan B.
No.
I mean, there was nothing else that Pete could have brought to the table to try to change the fight after round 1, and that's what you were saying, really.
Nothing he could have did. In fact, he mixed up his punches. He punched between the gloves, outside of the gloves.
So an easy victory for Rafael Marquez, despite Frissina's record of 26-3-1, despite the fact Frissina hadn't lost a fight in 6 years. And some ring experts had predicted that this could be a wipeout. It was. I think we're only beginning to learn how good Rafael Marquez is.
Marquez is a very good fighter. The fact that he beat 2 very good southpaws right in a row with Mark 2 sharp jumpers and then come right back and knocked out Timmy Austin. I mean, that's very impressive.
He managed to put a lot of leather on Johnson, one of the slickest defenders in boxing.
Yeah, who has came back and had a great victory since then.
That's right. So that shows you the hand speed as well as the technical capability of Rafael Marquez. And now let's go to ring announcer Michael Buffer for the official particulars on the knockout.
Ladies and gentlemen, referee Raul Caez Jr. has to step in and call a halt to this bout in round number 2. The official time, 22 seconds. The winner, and still IBF Bantamweight Champion of the World, de Ciudad de Mexico, Rafael Marquez.
CompuBox numbers, and you can see that Marquez actually landed fewer punches than Frissina, but landed half the punches he threw. Most of them were power shots. They did all the damage, and that was the end of the fight. Frissina may reflect and wish that he hadn't thrown 99 punches in a little over a round, because in doing that, he created lots of opportunities for Marquez to hit him.
And Marquez took advantage of every one of them.
Now let's go to Larry Merchant, along with interpreter Ray Torres in the ring, to hear from Rafael Marquez.
Congratulations, Rafael. When you saw him coming straight to you, did you know that it would be a matter of time?
Cuando lo viste que te estaba apresurando, sabía que ya era cosa de tiempo.
Claro que sí, yo lo vi que iba para adelante y tenía que pararlo, ¿no?
Yeah. I saw him that he was coming and pressuring me, and I knew I had to stop him.
what would you like to do with your career now?
¿Qué tú quieres hacer con tu carrera hoy en día?
Bueno, luchar más y echarle ganas, ¿no? Adelante aquí en mi carrera, ¿no?
Fight more and more and go
All right,
further.
Your brother is an outstanding featherweight. Does that keep you, as a big puncher and a very big bantamweight, from moving up to challenge some featherweights?
Tu hermano es campeón de los plumas. ¿Esto te mantiene a ti como un fuerte pegador en la 118 en vez de subir a la 126?
Claro que sí, porque no puedo subir a 126 porque estaba con Manuel. Pero yo me siento muy bien en las 118 libras y me mantendré que un año y medio.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't want to go up because of my brother, but I really feel comfortable at 118, so I'm going to be here for at least a year.
And then you will try some of the fighters perhaps that your brother beats?
Entonces luego, después de un año, tú vas a tratar de pelearle a algunos de esos peleadores que tu hermano ya le ha ganado.
Claro que sí, no sé, en la 122 libras super gallo y puedo subir a ese.
Yeah, absolutely. I will go up to the 22 or 26s and fight some of those guys.
What is it like to be in a family with two prominent fighters, both of whom are regarded as champions?
¿Cómo se siente estar en una familia donde hay dos verdaderos campeones que la gente piensa que son bien buenos?
Mucha responsabilidad y hay que trabajar más, ¿no? Hay que trabajar más que esto y van a ver a unos hermanos muy diferentes, ¿no?
It's a pleasure, but it's a lot of work because we have to keep and maintain our position. Now that people are going to see the Marquez brothers working harder.
Thank you very much. Congratulations once again.
Thank you very much.
Jim?
All right, thank you very much, Larry. A lot of speculation about Marquez's future because his body is so big for the 118-pound weight class. Now, obviously, he gets to weigh in the day before the fight, but even with that luxury, how long do you think Rafael Marquez can stay at 118 with those broad shoulders?
I think it's just the way he's built. I think he can stay there as long as he wants to stay there. What was interesting to me is watching him and watching all of the Mexican fighters recently. They're like Mexican-American fighters nowadays. You know, a lot of them are born in Mexico, but they box, they train over here like Barrera does. And you got Bojadas, same thing, lives and he graduated from the high school here that Oscar De La Hoya graduated from. So the Mexican fighters don't fight like they used to do. They have kept the best qualities of the Mexican fighters and still have picked up the American style also, where they are much more technical than they were, so they're almost like the perfect fight machine today.
So in other words, it's as if a Julio Cesar Chavez combines some of the talents of a Ray Leonard or maybe even a Pernell Whitaker with that to develop a new hybrid style.
That's exactly what it is. Oscar De La Hoya, a perfect example. But it's just interesting that some of the Mexican fighters now are actually outboxing some of the American fighters. They're much more technically sound.
All right, well, we've got another fight coming here.